Ohai. Hoek, the city in Indonesia, on Java Island in the province de Western Java. The territory of the city is allocated in an independent administrative unit, municipality. Cat. The population, more than 949,000 people. As of June 2010. The area minus 118.5 km. It is located in a northwest part of the province in 60 kilometers to the south from the capital of the country of Jakarta. Important economic infrastructure, scientific, cultural and tourist center, mountain resort. In the Middle Ages, Pakuan was called. I was the capital of the Kingdom of Sunda. During the Dutch colonization of Indonesia carried the name Batenzerk. I served as the summer residence of the Governor-General of the Netherlands East Indies. I performed functions of the administrative center of the Netherlands East Indies during her stay under the British control at the beginning of the 19th century. Now, location of the summer residence of the Indonesian presidents. In the city there is one of the oldest and world's largest botanical gardens, the Bogor Botanical Garden. And also the headquarters of the Center of the International Researches of the Woods. The first data on existence of the settlement on Bogor's place belong to the middle of the 5th century when this territory was a part of the Hindu Principality of Tarumanagara. One of the first state educations in the territory of modern Indonesia. In 669 on the remains of the territory of Tarumanagara who was injured a number of military defeats from next Srivijaya. The Kingdom of Sunda, within present Bogor, between small rivers Ciliwung was created. And Cisadane was based as capital, the city of Pakuan. Become modern Bogor's prototype. Within several centuries Pakuan turned into one of the largest cities of medieval Indonesia. His population, according to the Indonesian researchers, reached 48,000 people. It is remarkable that the name, Pajajaran, actually extended to all state, so, the Kingdom of Sunda appears in the Indonesian, Russian and Old Western historiography more often as the state of Pajajaran. At the same time the capital quite often is called just Pakuan. The most important sources of information on the history of the city during this period are processed. Stone steles and tables with inscriptions in the Sanskrit serving in Tarumanagara and the Kingdom of Sunda as language of a church service and official chronicles. The numerous processed found in Bogor and his vicinities considerably differ in a form and features of text information from other similar archaeological sites of Indonesia and are among the main attractions of the city. In the 9th-15th centuries the capital was periodically transferred from Pakuan to other cities of the kingdom, and date of the basis of Bogor is considered on June 3, 1482, day of return of the capital to Pakuan by Sunda Siliwangi's governor. And at the same time Siliwangi's crownings, since 1973 this date is celebrated in Bogor as an official city holiday. In 1579 Pakuan was captured and almost completely destroyed by troops of a sultanate Tubos that put an end to existence of the state of Sunda. Within a short period of time the ruined city was left by the survived inhabitants, and for the next decades the area, remaining almost uninhabited, grew with the jungle. In the second half of the 17th century the throne Pekong, as well as the most part of the territory of the Western Java, remaining formally under sovereignty of a Sultanate Banten, gradually passed under the actual control of the Netherlands East Indian Company. Miak. Officially under the power of Duchess he got on April 17, 1684, after signing of the agreement between Noik and the Crown Prince of Banten, who conceded to colonialists a considerable part of the territory of a sultanate. The camp of an expedition of the Lieutenant Navate. The Sultanate, who was in the service Noik directed by administration of the company in 1687 for development of the new territory, was the first temporary settlement of colonialists on this place. Following the results of Tanavid's expedition, it was entrusted to locate on Pekong's ruins and to overhaul the area for economic activity. The territory seriously was damaged as a result of eruption of the volcano which is nearby Salak, which occurred on January 4-5, 1699. However, the wildfires caused by eruption in the subsequent facilitated uprooting of the jungle and preparation of fields for rice landings and coffee plantations. For a short time around Pekong several agricultural settlements, the largest camp in Tubar, which in 1701 were united in the uniform administrative region led by the same Tanavidzai. Not accidentally, Tanavidzai is considered in Indonesia the founder of the Bogorski district, were created. The mission of 1703 led by the General Inspector of Noik Abraham van Rybak contributed to the further development of the settlement. The son of the founder of Cape Town, January van Rybak, in the subsequent the governor of the Netherlands East Indies. Under the direction of and with personal participation of Van Rybak, a considerable part of ruins of Pekong was investigated. Many archaeological finds, including prasasta found and in detail described, and also new buildings for the employees of Noik and native personnel working in Bogor are built. Settlements of the peasants moving from other areas for work on the coffee plantations created here were at the same time multiplied and integrated. Economic and administrative presence of Noik in the neighborhood of Pekong quickly extended. Dutches were attracted by the advantageous geographical location and moderate climatic conditions of this territory, distinguishing her from Haute Batavia, the administrative center of the Netherlands East Indies. In 1745, the palace, which became the summer residence of the Governor-General, was built here. From now on, heads of colonial administration steadily got over from Batavia, at least on 3 here, 4 hottest months in a year. In 1746, the palace adjoining to the Dutch settlement and 9 nearby native settlements were united by the order of the Governor-General Gustav Willem of Van Imhoff in the centralized administrative region, which received the official Netherlands name Batenzip, literally without care. The first documentary recorded mentions of the local name of the city, Bogor, also belong to the same time. In particular, this toponym appears in documents of colonial administration of April 7, 1752 in relation to a part of Batenzorge which was directly adjoining the governor's palace. In the environment of the native population, this name extended to all city, having become an alternative to the Netherlands Batenzorge. According to a main hypothesis, the name of the city comes from the Javanese word hook. In translation, a sugar palm tree. Arangapinata, which at the literal sense is present also at modern Indonesian. There are also versions of origin of a toponym from the Old Javanese word kager, cow, and also from the Dutch name of the city, which is simply distorted by locals. At the very end of the 18th century, the city, as well as all territory of the Netherlands East Indies, endured stage-by-stage process of transition under management from Nooit directly to the Netherlands. To 1796 management of the company experiencing bankruptcy, it was transferred to Government Committee on Oost-Indische Affairs. In 1798 the Netherlands state assumed all debts and obligations of Nooit, and is, at the same time, right concerning her possession. As a significant administrative transformations didn't follow it, the Governor-General, keeping a former control system, I began to represent not the East Indian Company, which is finally liquidated in 1800, and directly Netherlands government. Temporary occupation of the Netherlands East Indies by Great Britain in 1811, 1815 became an unexpected incentive for economic and infrastructure development of the city. British landed to Java and some other islands of the archipelago to prevent their transition to possession of Napoleonic France, which took at this time the Netherlands. The head of the British administration, Thomas Stamford Raffles, completely transferred the administrative centre of colony from Batavia to Baitunzug, and within 5 years introduced in the city, as well as in Java in general, new methods of management and managing, as a rule, considerably surpassing in efficiency Netherlands. After return to Dutches of their East Indian possession of Baitunzug, I became the summer residence of the Governor-General again. The new colonial administration made significant efforts on modernization and cultivation of the city. In particular, in his territory in 1817 the botanical garden, which became subsequently one of the largest in the world, was laid out. On October 10, 1834 Baitunzug seriously suffered as a result of a new volcanic eruption Salak and the earthquake accompanying him.
During restoration of the city, the high seismic hazard of the area, therefore the new building of the Governor's Palace and a complex of office buildings built in the 1848, the 1858 years, were much lower, was taken into consideration, but is stronger than predecessors. Besides, further building was carried out according to the Governor's Decree of 1845 ordering separate resettlement in Baitunzug of representatives of various nations. Dutches. All Europeans were equated to them. Chinese and Arabs. That and others actively migrated to the city in process of growth of his commercial appeal. In the 1860th, the 1880th years in Baitunzug, the agricultural school, largest in colony, chemical, biological and veterinary laboratories, city library, the Natural Science Museum, some other cultural and scientific institutions were created. By the end of the 19th century it became one of the most well-planned and westernized cities of Indonesia. In 1904 Baitunzug was given the official status of the administrative center of the Netherlands East Indies. However, such measure was especially formal. Really functions of management of colony remained beyond Batavia, where the most part of administrative facilities and the main office of the governor was still located. In Baitunzug only railway and mining departments were placed. This special status was actually cancelled during the administrative reform of 1924, regulating division of colony into provinces. Following the results, Baitunzug became the center of one of districts of the province de Western Java.
During World War II of Buitenzoek, as well as all territory of the Netherlands East Indies, it was occupied by armed forces of Japan. Occupation continued since March 6, 1942, when strength of allies without fight handed over the city to the opponent, before capitulation of the Japanese troops in the summer of 1945.
In the course towards stimulation of nationalist, anti-Dutch sentiments conducted by Japanese among local population and attraction of his sympathies on the party was officially appropriated to the city the Indonesian name Bogor.
In the city, one of the main centers of preparation of the Indonesian military militia of PETA created by occupational administration. Tambalatana Air, defenders of the homeland, was placed.
After declaration on August 17, 1945 of the Independent Republic of Indonesia, Bogor appeared in the territory of the new state. However, soon after withdrawal of the Japanese troops, the Dutches who landed in Java restored control over the city and the territories adjoining to him.
In February 1948, the city was included in the structure of the quasi-independent state the Western Java. The same year renamed in April to the state of Pasonding,
which was created at the initiative of the government of the Netherlands, expecting to turn the former colonial possession in the East Indies into dependent federal education.
In December 1949, Pasonding was a part of the United States of Indonesia. USI.
Founded according to the decision of the Indonesian-Netherlands Conference on August 23, on November 2, 1949.
A so-called Hague Conference of a Round Table. In February 1950, as a result of Pasonding's defeat in the rapid conflict with the Republic Indonesia, which was also this period a part of Chai, the city was included in the territory of the last that was officially issued in August 1950 with declaration of Indonesia as unitary state. At the same time, the name Bogor was assigned to it in a legislative order.
As a part of independent Indonesia, Bogor was given the status of municipality and at the same time the center of the district of the same name. The city began to play a significant role in cultural, scientific and economic development of the country and the Western Java in particular, first of all at the expense of the potential put during the colonial period. In addition, Bogor acquired the special provision thanks to transformation of the former summer residence of the Governor-General into the summer palace of the President of Indonesia. In the 1990th, the odd years in the city regularly held various international events, including ministerial meetings of various multilateral structures of the Pacific Rim and the organizations of the Union system.
In this plan carrying out in the APEC summit, which results the Bogorski purposes.
In many respects, still defining for further development of this international forum became on November 15, 1994 the most noticeable event which confirmed special Bogor value for the authorities of Indonesia.
Its city is in the western part of Java Island, approximately in 60 km to the south from the capital of the country of Jakarta, and in 85 km to the northwest from Bandung, the administrative center of the province the Western Java. Occupies the space of 118.5 km. The hook is located in a mountain hollow at a foot of volcano Salak. Top approximately in 12 km to the south from the city. And Jeed. Tops approximately in 22-25 km to the southeast from the city. Average height of the area above sea level within the city -265 meters, maximum -330 meters, minimum -190 meters. The area in the city generally hilly, height differences sometimes paracute. So, on 17.64 km. The urban area, the bias of the soil makes from 0 to 2 degrees on 80.91 km. From 2 to 15 degrees on 11.01 km. From 15 to 25 degrees on 7.65 km. From 25 to 40 degrees and on 1.20 km. Over 40 degrees. The most flatter areas northern Bogor and Tau. Anaxarite, the most hilly, Yushni Bogor. In the geological structure of soils, volcanic sedimentary rocks prevail. Taking into account proximity of repeatedly thrown up large volcanoes, the area is considered very seismodangerous. About 1.2% of the territory of the city are occupied with the forest area, about 0.7% gardens and parks. Apart from the agricultural land, within the city several rivers relating to the basin of the Java Sea flow. The largest of them are Chiliving and Chisadane. Between them is the historic center of the city. Smaller rivers, Chipakanchalan, Chaitpit, Chiparigi, Chibalek. On many sites are put into pipes. In the territory of the city there are also several small lakes, Zitaburang, literally the bird's lake. Zitaget, literally the big lake. And others, the area of several hectares everyone. The total area of reservoirs, the rivers and lakes, is 2.89% of the urban area. The climate is equatorial, more damp than in many other regions of the Western Java. An average annual indicator of humidity -70%. Rains also go considerably more often than in the neighboring areas. An average annual indicator of an amount of precipitation in general on the city about 1700 mm, in some areas, more than 3500 mm. The greatest intensity is reached in December, January and February. Owing to similar weather conditions for Bogor, the nickname, Rainy City, widely usable, gained a foothold in Indonesia. At the same time, Bogor's climate is much more cool than on average in Java. An average annual temperature maximum, +25.9 C. For comparison, in Jakarta, +32.2 C. The difference between the maximum and minimum daily temperatures to the Indonesian measures is very big, on average 9-10 C. The absolute temperature maximum registered by local weather services makes +38 C, an absolute minimum, +3 C. The ecological situation in Bogor in general is safe thanks to rather small amount of the large industrial enterprises, high level of gardening and purposeful nature protection policy of the local authorities seeking to keep tourist appeal of the city and its vicinities. The main threat to the environment is posed by constantly growing number of city transport leading to increase in volumes of emissions of carbon dioxide.
Also, the tendency to growth of the contents of dust in city air is noted. However, following the results of the researches conducted in 2007, excess of admissible concentration of dust was recorded only at one of 13 checkpoints which are evenly placed across the territory of the city. Pollution of city reservoirs happen mainly because of unauthorized dumpings of sewage and household waste, generally in areas of residence of the poorest segments of the population.
Generally, the ecological and sanitary condition of the rivers and the lakes Bogor doesn't fill with misgivings to the city authorities, taking into account, first of all, satisfactory results of tests on presence at water of the main pathogenic microorganisms. Following the results of the researches conducted in 2007, the admissible norm was exceeded only concerning colbacillus. Following the results of the national population census conducted in Indonesia in August 2010, 949,066 people lived in Bogor. On population density, about 800 people on came. Bogor belongs to number of the most densely populated cities of the world. The area the central Bogor is especially densely occupied. 12571 persons on came. As of 2010. The smallest density is recorded in the area Yushni Bogor. 5866 people on came. As of 2010. Growth rates of the population of Bogor in the second half of the 20th century, the first decade of the 21st century in general, were proportional to the general demographic and urbanization processes happening during this period in Java. Noticeable increase in dynamics since the end of the 1980 years is connected first of all with the sharp acceleration of economic development of the regions adjacent to Jakarta, which caused considerable inflow of human resources from other parts of the country. The gender structure of urban population. As of the end of 2009. Men of 484,648 people. 51.26%. Women of 464,418 people. 48.94%. 28. 39% of residents are younger than 15 years. 67.42% at the age of 15, 65 years, and 3.51% are more senior than 65 years. The expected average life expectancy of citizens by calculations of 2005 reaches 71.8 years, the highest rate for the Western Java and one of the highest in the country in general. 87% of citizens, Sundanese, live. Also significant amount of Javanese, Chinese, representatives of many other nationalities of Indonesia. The share of persons of the Sundansko-Javanese origin mixed, first of all, is essential. Practically all adult population of the city is fluent in a state language of the country, Indonesian, which is everywhere used in spheres of management, the higher education, office work. Besides, in life and partly in public life, Sundanski language is widely used, so, for example, a solemn speech of the mayor on the City Day holiday was delivered on June 3, 2010 on Sundanski. At the same time, the most usable is the local dialect form Sundanski, significantly different from classical option of this language both in lexical and in the phonetic plan. Vast majority of Bogorites, about 90%, Sunni Muslims. The number of Christians, Protestants and Catholics is only about 5%, However, in the city a set of Christian temples, Protestant and Catholic public organizations actively work. The Hook is the center of the diocese of the same name of the Roman Catholic Church. There is also a quantity of Buddhists, generally among the Chinese community, and Hindus. The territory of the city is allocated in a separate administrative unit, municipality, CAT, equal on the status to the district.
As of the middle of 2010, the administrative status of Bogor as city municipality is defined by the law of the Republic of Indonesia on local government No.
32 of 2004. Bogor's territory is divided into 6 areas. Kecamatan, which, in turn, are subdivided into 68 administrative units of the lowest level, 31 of which have the status of settlements and 37 the status of villages. The city is headed by the mayor who, as well as mayors of other Indonesian cities, according to the law of the Republic of Indonesia No. 32 of 2004, is elected citizens during the direct elections held time in 5 years. It was earlier in a directive way appointed provincial administration. Along with the mayor, his deputy, the vice mayor, is elected. During the elections of the mayor and vice mayor, the first in the history of Bogor, which took place on October 25, 2008, to the first post, Diani Budiarto was elected. To the second, Ahmad Ruyat. Both started execution of functions on April 7, 2009, powers of both expire on April 7, 2014.
The legislature in the city is carried out by City Council of National Representatives in the list of 45 deputies, which is also elected by inhabitants by direct elections and has 5-year powers.
A Speaker of the Council created following the results of elections which took place on April 9, 2009 is Mufti Faki. Is a part of council the representatives of 9 political parties forming 5 fractions. Bogor's coat of arms represents a 4-part board. In the first quarter, in the dark red field, the image of the state emblem of the Republic of Indonesia, a gold mythological bird of Garuda with a guard on a breast. In the second, in the azure field with the green extremity, the silver summer presidential palace. In the third, the azure mountain about 4 tops. In the silver field, the image of a volcano Salak. In the fourth, a gold national Sudanese dagger in the dark red field.
The head of a board black, in her a silver inscription, capital letters in Indonesian of Kota Bogor, the city Bogor.
The Hook has great economic value within the Western Java and Indonesia in general. The city differs in the developed services industry, high activity of trade and bank sectors, is the important center of the automotive, chemical and food industry. At the same time, in his suburban areas, the part of lands is in agricultural use. During the Netherlands colonization, Bogor was the important center of processing of agricultural and forest products. Coffee, rubber, valuable breeds of wood. At the end of the 19th century, the enterprises of chemical industry were created. During industrialization of independent Indonesia in the 1950th years, the base of the heavy industry was put. Economic development of the city in the next decades was defined by national realities.
The most dynamic period fell on the second half of the 1980th, the first half of the 1990th years. At the end of the 1990th years, results of a serious national and regional crisis were fully felt. At the beginning of the odd years in primary branches of local economy, recession was overcome, and, moreover, noticeable positive dynamics. So, growth rates of urban economy in 2002 were 5.78%, in 2003, 6.07%. Was restored. The volume of the gross regional product. GRP. Of Bogor in 2009 was 12.249 trillion Indonesian rupees. About $1.287 billion at the rate for the end of 2009. The total volume of investments minus 932.295 billion Indonesian rupees. Annual economic growth was recorded at the level of 6.02%. Despite positive dynamics of the key macroeconomic indicators, quantity of the Bogorites living lower than the level of poverty established for the population of the large cities is defined taking into account not only monetary income, but also level of access to the main social benefits. Increases, first of all due to large-scale resettlement to the city of needy residents of surrounding rural areas. In 2009, the share living lower than the level of poverty made 17.45% of the total number of inhabitants, that is almost twice higher than a similar indicator for 2006, 9.5%. The minimum wage established by the city authorities makes card Indonesian rupees a month. In 2008 in Bogor there were 3208 officially registered industrial enterprises at which people were employed. The total amount of the capital investments directed to the industrial sector during 2008 was more than 551 billion Indonesian rupees. 32237 busy and about 500 billion investments were the share of 114 enterprises belonging to the categories large and average. On 956 small industrial enterprises founded with formation of legal entity, workers and more than 47 billion investments, and were the share of 2138 small enterprises founded without formation of legal entity minus 9086 busy and 3.2 billion investments. Within the city, generally in suburban areas, there are quite considerable agricultural grounds. Their total area is 3466 hectares. Including 111 hectares of the reservoirs used for fishery and fish breeding. Primary branch of agriculture in which as of 2007 159 registered country articles were involved. The main cultures, rice. As of 2007, 1165 hectares of landings, an annual yield as of 2003, 9953 tons. Various vegetables. 772 hectares, 8296 tons. Corn. 382 hectares, 6720 tons. Sweet potato. 480 hectares, 3480 tons. In the livestock sector 25 registered articles work. As of 2007. Cows. More than 1,000 heads, cumulative milk yield more than 61 million liters. Sheep. About 12,000. Hens. More than 642,000. Ducks. About 8,000. Get divorced. As of 2007.
As of 2007, in these spheres worked 40 registered enterprises. Fish generally gets divorced artificially in special reservoirs and on jellied rice fields. 25-30 tons of fish of food grades are annually caught. Very remarkable and profitable industry is cultivation of aquarium fishes and also their catch in the native habitat, the local rivers. So, in 2008 only to their foreign markets it was supplied for the sum of $367,000. In 2008 in the city there was 23241 registered trade enterprise. In total 42220 people were engaged in the trade sector at this time. The total amount of the capital investments directed to it was 232.5 billion Indonesian rupees. 207 enterprises, 2 category of averages -12 68 and 2 category small -21666 enterprises, from which 7741 it was funded with formation of legal entity and 13925 without formation of legal entity belonged to the category of large. In Bogor as of 2008 there were 8 large shopping centers, 9 supermarkets and 7 large markets. In addition, in the city there are a lot of small shops and also, first of all in suburban areas, benches and markets of traditional type. During an economic crisis of the end of the 1990th years the number of stationary outlets was a little reduced. However, in the same time and in the next several years there was a sharp growth of number of dealers' messengers. From 2,500 in 1996 up to 12,000 in 2004. That was accompanied by a number of problems of social and legal character. Since 2005 the city authorities make active efforts on streamlining of activity of peddlers and her reduction in compliance with requirements of the national labor law. The essential share of the industrial and agricultural output made in Bogor is exported. In 2008 the volume of officially registered export exceeded 144 billion Indonesian rupees. Clothes and footwear. The main importers, the USA, EU countries, the ASEAN countries, Canada, Australia, Russia. Textiles. The USA, New Zealand. Furniture. Republic of Korea. Car tires. The country of ASEAN and Latin America. Toys and souvenir products. Japan, Germany, Brazil. Soft drinks. The country of ASEAN and the Middle East. Aquarium fishes. Japan, the countries of the Middle East. Were his main articles. Hook, one of the most important infrastructure centers of Java. Across the territory of the city. As of 2008. There pass 599.2 kilometers of roads, including roads of national value -30.2 kilometers, provincial value -26.8 kilometers, local value -542.2 kilometers. In total, road and transport infrastructure occupies 5.31% of the square of the city. In Bogor 22 city routes of public transport served by 3506 transport units, buses and minibuses function. The most part of the last actually represents the shared taxis known in Indonesia under the traditional name. An acronym from Angkutan Kota, literally city transport, city transportations. Besides, 10 bus routes connect the city with the next suburbs. 4612 cars. and 40 with other cities of the Western Java. 330 cars. In the territory of the city there are 2 motor transportation terminals, Baranangsiang and Bubulek. The area of the first, serving long distance and freight transportation, is 22100 m. The second, serving city passenger routes, -11850 m. Besides, there is a certain station for the tourist buses and buses plying between Bogor and the next to in the airport, Jakarta Soekarno-Hatta, located approximately in 55 kilometers from the city. Flights to the airport go round the clock at an interval of 1 hour. The railway station, built in 1881, serves both electric trains and the train with diesel locomotives. About 70 departures and 70 arrivals daily, a passenger turnover about 50,000 people a day, a considerable part of which is made by the Bogorites working in the capital. In the city, the big park of the taxi, both cars and motor scooters of a special design. A serious problem for the city authorities is a large number of unlicensed taxi and also the motorcyclists who are private carrier known as ojeki. In recent years in the city, the number of traditional Indonesian trishas, becak, significantly increased. In a case with them, the problem of official registration is also very relevant. From more than 2,000 drivers working in the city, only 1725 have the license for carrying. For October 2009, that causes frequent police raids in places of their parkings. In the central part of the city, the cartage, traditional Javanese horse vehicles of a Delmana, remains. Delmana enjoy wide popularity among the tourists visiting the city. In this connection, their most part plies, as a rule, in areas of the summer presidential palace, a botanical garden and other sites. Residential buildings occupy 26.46% of the square of the city, a 71.11% of his built-up territory. For the central part of Bogor are typical multi-storied, usually 5-14 floors. Houses. Suburban areas are built up with mainly 1-2-storied houses. Both in the center and on the outskirts, strict linear planning remains. Houses are located along streets, having, as a rule, accurate sequential numbering. At the same time, houses are small quarters of standard cottages of average and high class, with the surrounding cultivated territory often are grouped in so-called housing estates. They having own names. At the end of the old years in the city, there were more than 90 similar complexes.
Type growth of the Bogorski population in the 1998, due to arrival to the city of a large number of residents of neighboring areas, led the old years to significant increase in number of low-quality housing of rural type, mainly on the city outskirts.
Part of similar housing with a total area of 2,119,440 m. 69 various sites. It is officially classified by the city authorities as slums. More than a half of slums is in northern Bogor, -1,242,490 m. Their smallest quantity is registered in Yushni Bogor, -89780 m.
For resettlement of residents of slummy areas by the city administration, the program of construction of cheap standard housing houses of an easy combined design in the western Bogor is deployed.
The estimate of the program makes 29.7 billion rupees. About $317 million at the rate for the beginning of September 2010. From which 18.8 billion are allocated from the city budget and 10.9 billion are invested by private builders. It is supposed that the established rent minus card rupees $22 a year will make housing available to most of inhabitants of slums. Providing Bogor with the electric power is carried out by regional structure of the Indonesian State Energy Company. The serving province the Western Java and Banten. The headquarters is in Bogor. Energy supplies are carried out with more than 10 regional warm and hydroelectric power stations through 2 local transformer stations located in the urban areas of Cimakpar and Cibalong. Electrification of all housing stock, except a part of the spontaneous slummy buildings which are subject to resettlement, is provided. Street lighting as of 2007 provided only 35.38% of the urban area. 4193 sources of lighting functioned. However, expansion of the corresponding infrastructure happens in high gear for 10-15% annually. As of 2009, only 47% of inhabitants of Bogor are provided with clear tap water through the centralized city water supply system managed by the state company, Tertapakwan. The city water supply system carries out a water intake from the Cisadane River, 1240 liters a second, and 3 natural sources, Kotbat, Bentokaming and Tangkel, 410 liters a second. A distributive infrastructure having the total length of 741 km covers about 70% of the urban area. However, connection to her of a considerable part of potential consumers is represented problematic for the financial and technical reasons. More than a half of citizens uses public sources of water. Columns, wells are in the least well-planned areas, natural reservoirs. Services on cleaning of garbage serve 67% of the urban area. Volumes of the collected municipal solid waste are about 800,000 cubic meters a year. The organic origin has more than 70% from them. About 63% of waste take out from residential areas, 13% from the markets, 7% from shops, hotels and restaurants, 5% from the industrial enterprises, 4% from places of public use and 7% collect as a result of cleaning of streets. About 90% of all waste bury gala on the ground. Hectares, being in the territory of the Bogorski district, process about 7% into compost and about 3% destroy in 5 waste incineration furnaces located directly in the city. The total area of green plantings is 205,000 m. From them 87,000 m. Bogorski Botanical Garden, 19.4 thousand m. Parks and squares, 35 places, 17.2 thousand m. Forest belts, 24 places, and 81, 4,000 m. Landings of a grass along thoroughfares and on dividing lines. 34 places. In Bogor there are 7 operating cemeteries which names coincide with names of the respective urban areas. Cilendek, Jimenez, Sitajid, Mulyakarta, Blender, Treated, Kuningadan. The first 6 have the status of public cemeteries, meaning lack of any restrictions for burial on religious or ethnic sign. At the same time, taking into account absolute prevalence among the Bogorski population of Muslims, they actually are Muslim. Graves of Bogortsev Christian are located, as a rule, or on certain sites of these cemeteries, or at the small cemeteries adjacent to some city churches. Some mosques also have small sites for burials. Burials of anonymous dead men and also burials of needy are at the expense of the state budget carried out usually at the cemetery Jimenez. The cemetery Gunung is especially Chinese. The burials which are there differ in the corresponding ethnocultural originality. In the conditions of aggravation in Indonesia in the 1990s, the odd years of ethno-confessional contradictions, representatives of extremist nationalist circles repeatedly threatened riots of this cemetery that causes need of additional security measures in his territory. In view of rapid growth of the urban population causing increase in absolute measures of mortality in February 2010, the city authorities made the decision on increase in the territory of 3 cemeteries, Jimenez, Sitajid and Mulyakarta. To everyone the additional site in 5 hectares was given. Until the end of 2010, increase in territories of the cemeteries Blender and Treated is planned for the same 5 hectares at everyone. The cemetery Cilendek, located closer than others to the downtown and surrounded from all directions with various buildings, isn't subject to expansion. The hook belongs to a number of the main scientific and education centers of Indonesia. A considerable part of the academic and research base was put even during the Dutch colonization. In particular, since the beginning of the 19th century, the laboratories and professional schools focused first of all on increase in efficiency of colonial agriculture were created here. At the end of the beginning of the 20th century's larger scientific institutions, Research Institute of Rubber and Research Institute of the Wood were founded. The similar prevailing profile of research and academic activity was kept in Bogor and the Ambassador of Finding of Independence by Indonesia. Both in the second half of the 20th century, and in the odd years, agricultural sciences, biology and veterinary science remained the strongest directions. The main education and scientific center having paramount national value is the Bogorski Institute of Agriculture, which structure, besides educational capacities, includes tens of the research centers and laboratories. The average level of education among Bogorts according to the Indonesian standards is very high. 98.7% of citizens are competent. Besides secular educational institutions, in the city there are more than 700 Muslim schools, madrasas, several Christian schools and colleges. One of the most important scientific centers of Indonesia. The agricultural researches which are conducted here on the basis of Bogorski Agricultural Institute, the Bogorski Botanical Garden, and also more than 10 laboratories which aren't entering into its structure: Pokrovecheski, Dendrology, Veterinary, Ichthyological, and others are of particular importance. In Bogor there is also a center of the International Researches of the Woods, the non-profit scientific structure operating within consultative group on the international agricultural researches.
Coordination of the researches which are conducted in various agricultural laboratories and scientific centers of Bogor is carried out within the Committee on Researches and Development of Agriculture operating in the city, which is structural division of the Ministry of Agriculture of Indonesia.
At the end of the odd years, research is in areas of natural pesticides and repellents, optimization of interrow cultures, industrial use of essential oils and alkaloids of natural origin, increase in productivity of different types of pepper, improvement of methods of their conservation and processing were among the main activities of Bogorski scientists.
On saturation, Bogor occupies with cultural institutions one of the leading places among the cities of Indonesia. In particular, some of the museums which are available here are among the oldest and the largest in the country. So, the local zoological museum was opened at the end of the 19th century according to the order of the Netherlands colonial administration as addition to the botanical garden.
Main museums of Bogor. The Zoological Museum is open in 1894. Thousands of exhibits which considerable part belongs to the colonial period. The Museum of Ethnobotany. It is open in 1982. More than 200 exhibits. The Museum of the Earth is open in 1988, represents hundreds of samples of soils and rocks from the different areas of Indonesia. The Museum of Fight is open in 1957. Is devoted to the history of the Indonesian national liberation movement. The Museum Pita is open in 1996, is devoted to history of the Indonesian military militia of Pita, defenders of the homeland, created during World War II by the Japanese occupational administration. In rooms of the Presidential Palace, office buildings and the university's various art exhibitions are systematically held. In the city there is a drama theater, tens of movie theaters, 9 of which, as of the middle of 2010, are equipped according to modern international standards. Regularly there take place festivals of folk art, other Massachusetts cultural actions, and also conferences and seminars on a cultural perspective. So, in 2008 Bogor was chosen by the venue of the Congress of the Indonesian Culture. Healthcare. The first medical institutions were created in Bogor in the first half of the 19th century during the Netherlands colonization. By the beginning of the 20th century there were here civil hospitals and military hospital and also a large psychiatric clinic in which for work, besides the Dutch doctors, experts from other countries of Europe and North America were attracted.
In the 1930th years the Hospital of the Netherlands Society of the Red Cross, which functions still as Hospital of the Indonesian Society of the Red Cross, became the largest medical institution. The most part of the hospitals and clinics working in Bogor at the end of the odd years is constructed in the 1980th, the 1990th years. Its city healthcare system is considered quite safe to the Indonesian measures. Key indicators in this area significantly exceed not only averages over the country, but also averages across the Western Java, which is one of the most developed provinces of Indonesia.
Bogor Hospitals. Hospital of the Indonesian Society of a Red Cross. The general profile, the oldest in the city. Karya Bakti Hospital. The general profile. Salak Hospital. The general profile. Ciabi Hospital of the Indonesian Society of a Red Cross. The general profile. Hospital of the Air Force, Atang Santhaya.
The general profile, departmental.
The Bogorski Medical Center.
A.
The general profile, private. Islamic Hospital. The general profile, only for Muslims. Azhar Hospital. Women's and Children's. Melania Hospital. Women's and Children's. Hermina Hospital. Women's and Children's. Marzuki Mahdi Hospital. Infectious. Massachusetts Media. In Bogor, 2 daily city newspapers, Bogor Radar. It is founded in 1998. The editor-in-chief, Azvan Ahmad, and Bogor magazine are issued. The editor-in-chief, Alfian Madzani, is founded in 2008. Both live in Indonesian, circulations vary within 25,000 copies. Newspapers have electronic versions. In the city also several magazines of various frequency and also scientific almanacs of a number of local higher education institutions are issued. Besides, in Bogorski printing houses a part of circulation of the majority of the West Javanese and some national newspapers is printed.
In Bogor, 2 city television channels work.
Bogor TV. Bogor TV. And Magasva. Ra TV. Magaswara TV.
Which transmissions are broadcast from the transferring complexes located here to corresponding on Channel 25 off on the territory of the city and nearby regions of the Western Java.
Not less than 30 local radio stations, from which 10 in AM range, the others in the range of FM work. As of March 2010, in Bogorski office of the Indonesian National Committee on Sport for participation in national and regional competitions of various level, the teams representing 28 sports disciplines were registered. Level of achievements of local athletes recognizes a management of office as unsatisfactory. So, following the results of the 11 West Javanese Provincial Olympic Games, which were held on July 4-13, 2010, instead of the planned 42 gold medals, the city team won only 13, having won in the overall ranking only the 10th place from 26. 12 silver and 20 bronze awards were also won. In the city there are 15 sports organizations. The largest of them is the Bogorski Football Union, headed by the acting mayor Diani Budiarto. City soccer team, Bogor. Bogor never occupied prize-winning places in the national championships. The city multipurpose stadium, Podshadzaran, accommodates 25,000 viewers. Tourism and sites. Botanical Garden, the main attraction of Bogor. The Hook is one of the most considerable centers of tourism, not only Java, but also all Indonesia. So, at a National Tourist Exhibition of 2010 in Jakarta, it was recognized as the most attractive tourist object of the country in category of the cities. Annually, the city and its next vicinities about 1.8 million people, from them visit more than 60,000 foreigners. Visitors are attracted both by historical and cultural sites of the city, and natural beauty surrounding it, picturesque hillsides, lakes, tea plantations. Inflow of tourists is promoted by favorable climatic conditions, the developed transport, trade and hotel infrastructure. Botanical Garden. It is founded in 1817, represents about 15,000 species of tropical plants. The area of actually botanical garden within Bogor is 87 hectares, however in 1866 he was complemented with office in the country town of Cibodas of 120 hectares that made it the largest institution of this sort in the world. At the end of the 19th century, the garden gained broad international popularity, was systematically visited by naturalists of various countries for carrying out scientific research. So, in Imperial Street, Petersburg Academy of Sciences during this period the special Botanski grant, allowing to send young scientists for training at a botanical garden was founded. Among scholars there were such Russian botanists as Vladimir Arnoldi, Andrei Krasnov, Mikhail Mestagadi. The former residence of the Netherlands Governor-General, nowadays the summer palace of the President of Indonesia. It is constructed in 1745 as the summer residence of the Netherlands Governor-General, substantially reconstructed after a powerful earthquake of 1834. Since the beginning of the 1950th years, the summer residence of Presidents of Indonesia. The area -18492 m. The palace is surrounded with the park with a small reservoir, the total area of a palace complex -28 hectares. The park is open for public the most part of year, the palace, periodically, usually in days of celebration of the City Day or the Independence Day of Indonesia. In the palace there is a collection of fine arts, about 450 pictures and 360 sculptures. Periodically in palace rooms exhibitions and various hospitality events are held. The herd of tame deer lives in the park. In the territory of the city and in his next vicinities there are tens of prasosta, medieval stone steels and tables with annalistic records. 15 prasist, being of the greatest historical and cultural value, are collected in the special pavilion in the town of Batu-Tulis. Lake Gede. The picturesque lake of 6 hectares, the largest of city reservoirs, is located in the western part of the city. It is a part of the hydraulic system including several smaller lakes and the ponds which are within Bogor and beyond his limits. On coast the reserved forest area subordinated to the Ministry of Forestry of Indonesia and also a forest park and recreation areas are located. In a reserved part several research objects which are under authority of administration of the Bogorski Botanical Garden or Bogorski Agricultural Institute and also the Center of the International Researches of the Woods are located. See the section Science and Education. In recreation areas sporting events, boat walks and fishing will be organized.
The cemetery, which now is in the territory of the Bogorski Botanical Garden, was created more than 3 decades prior to laying of the park. The oldest of the remained burials is dated 1784.
At the cemetery 42 graves in which the Netherlands colonial officials, military, scientists serving in Bogor, Jakarta and other cities of the Western Java since the end of the 18th and beginning 20th centuries, and also dicks of their families, are buried. Besides, there is a monument to Olivia Raffles, wife of the head of temporary British administration of the Netherlands East Indies Thomas Raffles, which died and buried in 1814 in Jakarta.
Many gravestones and monuments are executed at the high art level. In the territory of the Bogorski Botanical Garden, in close proximity to the Dutch cemetery, 3 graves of the early period of the Kingdom of Sunda,
the 15th century, are located. In them are buried the wife of the governor Siliwangi, who is considered as Bogor's founder,
Kalak Mangku,
Alam, and 2 his confidants, the Vizier Ball and the Commander de Lapra. Graves are esteemed by many Bogorites, considering buried in them by patrons of the city. Grave of one of founders of National Indonesian School of Painting of Raden Saleh. Died in 1880 in Bogor. I was born in 1814. Is not at the cemetery, and on one of the central city streets.
Interest and visit of a grave is attracted both by high popularity of works of the artist and mysterious circumstances of his death.
According to one of versions, it was poisoned.
In April 2008, at a grave, the Cultural Information Center, containing an exposition of reproductions of works of Raden Saleh and also copies of his pictures executed by modern Indonesian painters, was open.
Religious constructions of various faiths. Bogorski Cathedral Mosque. It is constructed in 1979.
The Bogorski Center of Development and Studying of Islam and Public Library adjoins to the mosque.
Blessed Virgin's Church of Maria. The Cathedral of the Diocese of Bogor is constructed in 1896-1905. One of the oldest operating Catholic temples of Indonesia. Buddhist Temple of Fudmao.
Hottekbio.
It is constructed in 1672 in classical South Chinese style. First Buddhist Temple of Bogor, one of the oldest in Indonesia. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.